Welcome to another episode of We Don't Die. I'm your host, Sandra Champlain, author of the international best-selling book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And just a reminder, my home base is wedon'tdie.com, where you can always find a lot of great free things. We offer a free motivational, inspirational service every Sunday. It's called our Sunday Gathering. There's a medium demonstration included. We also have classes and so much more. About a year ago, I started a Patreon community. So if you're somebody who really wants to know all there is to know about the afterlife, I now have over 730 episodes between this show and my Shades of the Afterlife on iHeartRadio. Everything you can find at the main page at wedon'tdie.com, including at the bottom of the list. If you want to join my email list, I invite you to. It says you get the first few chapters of my book. The secret is it is the entire book. Chapter 10, I think, is one of the most important, dealing with how we survive grief. So that's all there for you at wedon'tdie.com. Now let's get to our great guest. Our guest today is Kim Hodis, who is not only a best-selling author and a dynamic motivational speaker, she's on a mission to make this world a happier place. But also, she is a courageous advocate for authentic healing through grief. Having navigated the unimaginable loss with the transition of 2 children, Kim emerged with powerful insights and a deeply spiritual connection to the other side. Her soon-to-be released book, which might already be out by the time you're listening or watching to this, is called Beyond Grief: How a Son's Afterlife Connection Transformed a Mother's Loss into a Remarkable Spiritual Journey. Kim is also a certified grief recovery specialist and speaks with honesty, vulnerability, and warmth, offering wisdom on finding joy in the face of life's deepest pain. You can find out more about her on her websites. One is messagesformoms.com, and the other is her name, kimhodis.com. Kim, my new friend, welcome to We Don't Die.
Thank you. I'm so, again, honored, privileged, and excited to be here. Thank you.
Oh, I feel the same way meeting you. You have been on such a journey in so many different ways. And when I just read about you, that foundation of bringing happiness and joy is always there. And then you've dealt with loss. It's like, let's talk to this woman. So I'm so grateful you reached out. Tell us your story, Kim, and where are you in the world?
I am in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I'm actually up in Northwest Arkansas today visiting my children, but I live in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which is a very spiritual, magical place. I recommend it for everyone.
Not too familiar with that, but good to know. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you. If you would just, I won't interrupt you too much unless I have a burning question, but tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about your background, all the happiness things, and weave in the story of your kids as well, if you would.
You bet. So my journey really started over 30 years ago with the death of my 2-year-old daughter, Chelsea, to leukemia. She came out of the womb sick, and just anything that came along, a little one would get. And when she was 2, she was diagnosed with leukemia on Thanksgiving Day. And within 6 months, she was gone. We took her to the pediatric bone marrow transplant center up in Minneapolis, and she fought a courageous fight. But my husband and I were able to hold her in our arms as she took her last breath. And as devastating as that whole experience was, it also brought a lot of gifts. One of the gifts that I discovered with Chelsea in the months after she died, every place I went, I started to find smooth white stones, little white stones. I had no idea what they meant, but I knew without a doubt they were from her. And I know anybody listening to this, and I know you've had signs, we get those signs. And I knew those signs were from her, but I didn't know what the message was. And it was months later, I was sitting in church, and at the time we lived in Cottonwood, Arizona, which is in the Verde Valley, sister city to Sedona. And I had been traditional religion my whole life. My husband kept having these patients come in who were all from this Unity church over in Sedona. And he's like, these people are so happy and so white. He's like, I think we should check this church out. So we went over and we became members, and we didn't really understand a lot of the principles. It was all very new to us. But like our second or third time there was a guest pastor. And this pastor was speaking on the story of David and Goliath. And she said, people get David represents that underdog spirit in all of us, that, that part of us that knows that we can triumph, that we're meant for bigger things, that we can accomplish the amazing. Goliath represents those huge obstacles in our lives. Maybe it's a financial crisis or a health crisis, the death of someone we love. She goes, but what nobody talks about are the smooth white stones that David uses to slay Goliath. And I will tell you, the hair stood up on the back of my neck. I just started to tremble. And it was like, I knew whatever she said next were words for me from Chelsea. I knew she was saying them, but they weren't words she wrote for that crowd that morning. It was Chelsea speaking directly to me. And she said, those smooth white stones represent our ability to overcome any obstacle, slay any giant, and create a life we love. Ooh, and I was just like, Chelsea, I got it. Chelsea was saying, Mom, you can overcome this, move on. Because my friends used to all call me Mary Poppins. I mean, I'm a happiness speaker. I am a happy person generally. And then this happened and I fell into a pit of despair. And so that was my message from Chelsea, which was really my first inkling of, oh, she's still around. She's still communicating with me. She's still got things to teach me and tell me. And it was really after that experience that I went down the rabbit hole. We were talking about research, and I went down the rabbit hole of figuring out happiness. Like, what is happiness and what is true happiness and authentic happiness? And can someone else make us happy, or do we have to make ourselves happy? And, the whole thing, which then led me to becoming the happiness speaker. So over about a 10-15 year period, I built a very successful business. I built $1 million company from a kitchen table. I mean, I'd been a school teacher and a stay-at-home mom. So I built this business, and then people wanted me to come talk about success and happiness. And then it just blossomed into this beautiful career. I always say I thought I had the best job in the whole world. I got to fly around the country and make people happy.
What's better than that? And that's motivational speaking. I know you've done hundreds of speaking
thousands.
events.
Yeah, I've been doing it for almost 20 years.
Goodness.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm Walmart, Toyota. I've been on some of the, I feel so privileged to just my mission in life is to make the world a happier place.
Nothing wrong with that.
I have this, so I have this well-established career as a happiness speaker. COVID hits. Of course, all in-person events are shut down for 2 years. Finally, things are opening back up. I'm in Boston for speaking at a USDA conference, and I'm on my way home, stranded in a stranded in a hotel room in Charlotte, North Carolina, when I get the call from the police that my son has been found dead in his home from a fentanyl overdose. Oh, and I was just, it was the most horrible and one of the most beautiful nights of my life. I'm stranded there in the middle of a storm. I have no idea if I'm going to be able to get home the next day. I call my husband, and then we dial in our 3 kids individually, and we let tell each of them that their brother is gone. I mean, just horrific night. But that night, I never slept. I stayed awake the whole night. And I know Rob was in that room with me. I mean, he had not gone to the light yet. He had been hanging on because he had died actually a couple of days ago, but because of this storm, nobody had been able to get up there. His girlfriend had thought it was weird. He wasn't returning her calls, and she was the one who went up and found him. And so that night, Rob, we just spent the whole night. It was just he and I. And I mean, it was just like, I just kept saying, he's like, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed. He had been clean for the last 2 years. He had substance use issues for 7 years, and then he'd gotten clean the last 2. And as far as we know, that was really one of the only times he used, but he was sold fentanyl instead of heroin, which was what he thought he was being sold. And, I just kept saying, Rob, it's okay. It's okay. I'm going to make it okay. I'm going to, fight against the stigma. We're going to, you don't need to be ashamed. This is, you were a beautiful person. I'm going to make this right. And, And so much in the book has come out about that whole experience. And it's just so beautiful. Um, so I canceled everything on my calendar because you can't really stand up and talk about happiness when your child has just died. And so I spent a year in what I call the belly of the whale. I mean, I did grief therapy. It was so powerful that I went ahead and I got certified in the grief recovery method. That was the grief work that I did. So powerful. I love it. It's 7 weeks. I'm a go-getter. I'm 61. My runways get shorter. I don't have 10 years to heal this time like I did in my 30s. Like, I got to figure this shit out. Excuse me if I'm not supposed to swear. And so I loved the grief recovery method. It was super powerful for me. I got certified in it. And then, so Rob died February 2nd of 2022. And March 6th, in my morning meditation, he came through to me. And I mean, my daddy's a minister, a United Church of Christ minister, was brought up in a very traditional religious home, had never had, I mean, I knew like with Chelsea, I had gotten the messages, but I never like communicated with Chelsea. I mean, I had that really powerful experience. Man, Rob came through, and Rob's a big personality. And if you buy the book, I've got a ton of pictures in there, and then I have a ton of bonus content of videos of him. He was a tennis pro. He had started his own little tennis academy up on Mount Sequoia, which is right in the shadow of the University of Arkansas Razorbacks. He was the lead stringer for the Razorbacks. He had a degree in entrepreneurship. He'd started a pest control business. He was just bigger than life. And Rob, even though he was an addict, he never turned dark. You know, some addicts turn dark. He just stayed the bright light, lifted everybody up. He just lit up a room when he walked into it. And I'm finding so many of these kids that pass, especially from addiction, they are like that. I think because they're so sensitive and they feel everything, and I mean, so many of them have huge, big hearts and so much love to give. They're so bright. And Rob was with that group. And I know my experience has been meeting so many mamas who have lost a child in the same way. It seems like our kids are so similar. They're just kind, compassionate, big-hearted, loving, bright lights. And so that then kind of flipped my world again. So I didn't share with a lot of people that I was connecting with Rob, because even in my family, you know, his brothers and sisters, we'd all be together and I go, oh, well, I talked to Rob this morning and he said, and it would just kind of get quiet and everybody would just kind of be like, Mom's off again on one of her tangents. And so, I mean, I had a couple of really spiritually aligned friends that I was sharing this with. And then Rob, I had an experience where I don't know what else to call it except a waking dream. It's like he was there. And he said, you know, Mom, I'm not going back into a body for a while. We have some work we're going to do. And he said, I am going to teach you how to teach other moms to connect with their kids in the way we have. This isn't mediumship. It's not psychic abilities. It is just for direct connection with one of your loved ones. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks, son. You've done quite enough for me already. I'm like, you know, I mean, I speak on corporate stages. I'm like, I'm not going to be the woman that then raises her hand and says, and oh yeah, I can help you connect with your dead kid. Although of course we know they don't die, but
Right. It's going out in the skinny branches. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, you are going to do this. And he's like, you just have forgotten. You signed up. You've just forgotten. This was part of our contract together. And it took him about a week. And the whole story is in the book. It's really quite hilarious because I'm just like, you know, I'm like, Rob, I'm not a psychic. I'm not a medium. I'm not a channel. I don't have the gift. Like, I'm not the person to teach this. And he said, Mom, that's what's going to make you perfect for this, because the moms you're going to work with, they're not psychics. They're not mediums. They're not channels. They don't have the gift. They just desperately want to connect with their kid the same way that you and I have. And so then that was another about 9 months of him giving me all the pieces of the program, because this is nothing I'd done. I've not studied mediumship or psychicness or, you know, it was just like, here's a step-by-step system. And I want to say on here, and I say this every time I start a class, Rob's very adamant. Nobody needs to take a class to learn how to connect with loved one. They are available to us. All we have to do is build the belief. And so I say my first class, if you go and just, if I can in this moment give you the belief that you can connect, go connect. I'll give you all your money back. You don't need a class. If you need a system, if you need a systematic approach, I've got a systematic approach. We were talking earlier, I'm a research geek too. So I said to Rob, like, man, you got to lay this out step by step, because I don't have any natural ability. So you got to give me a program. And that's what he did. And so so now there's that piece too. I'm just again, I don't know if the book will be out, if this will be aired after the book's out or not, but I'm so excited to get the book out because I just feel like it's going to help so many people. And just running the class, and that's how I landed in this world I am walking in right now.
My goodness. Now, I know this may come out just before your book launch, but I might try to tie it in. But if people want to get the advanced copy or sign up for it, you can get that at messagesformoms.com, right? I saw a place to fill out your name and
/book. Yep.
Okay.
messagesformoms.com/book.
Okay. Yeah. Now, there's going to be tons of people interested in the book, but there's going to be other people that today might be the only time you get to talk with them. Mm-hmm. What can you give us to help us connect now? And maybe any stories that you might have that you feel like, this is Rob talking with you.
So wow, those are two totally different things. So let me tell you first how I know it's Rob talking to me. The way that I know it was Rob and not me, was because so much of the information was brand new to me. Like so I would sit down. Rob had this big orange polka dot chair that his best friend had given him. And and then in the picture that he had hanging over it in his apartment, he had it hanging on an angle. And I asked him, I'm like, why did you have that hanging on an angle? He said, because I only had one nail. But so I sat in that chair. That was the very first day where I sat when he came through. And then it would just be like my hands. It would just, I could barely keep up. I wouldn't stop to correct errors or typos. My hands would just fly. It was like I was taken over. And in the class, I teach people, and this could cross over because this could help them too. To me, when you're trying to connect with your child, write it down, like type it or write it, because when you can get out of your mind space and you can just let it come through, when you go back and read it and you don't recognize it, that's how you know it wasn't you. Because when I would go back and read the stuff after I had gotten it from Rob, it was like I was reading somebody else's book. It was like, this wasn't my information. There were so many things, like he talked about, like on Mother's Day, which we've just had, on Mother's Day, the first Mother's Day he was gone, he said, being a mom is so challenging. It's such an important role to play, that often as souls, we're a mom one incarnation, and then we come back the next incarnation. We either come back as a man or not with children, because it's such it can be such an intense life. And I didn't think of that, but I thought, oh, heck yeah, that's, that's this life. I'm like, oh man, did I sign up for it? Losing 2 children, 3 decades apart, in such incredibly different, such different circumstances. So that's how I would know. And that's one of the things I really teach, is not just, we get signs, but what I would encourage people to do, if you see a sign, then sit down and just, have a little journal and say, whatever their sign for Rob, for me, it was heart rocks. I love to wear little heart rock necklaces, but I have tons of heart rocks that I have found in the last 3 years. And, so, if you want a deeper connection with your loved one on the other side. Now, Rob said this system works with anybody, but because I was so resistant, he said we're going to start with moms because number one, that's what I know. I know losing a child, unfortunately, intimately. I've done it twice, like I said, in two completely different circumstances. And he said, moms, as mothers, we carry our children's DNA in our bodies until we die. So, I mean, we are so intimately connected to our children. And so he said, we'll start there. And I was like, okay, if I've got to do this, let's start there. And that's all, that's as far as I've gotten right now. But so he so if you see a sign, like for me it was heart rocks, whatever it is, a rainbow, a cardinal, a butterfly, then just go say, whatever your child's name is, Rob, I saw heart rock today. What were you trying to tell me? What do you want me to know? And just start to build that. But because when we write and when we can get our mind out of the way and just let ourselves write, they can come through. And when you go back and you read it and you go, oh, man, I have no idea where that came from. That's when it wasn't you. It was, it was someone else, your child, or whoever you're connecting with.
Yeah, it's really good advice. And I know for myself, and this is my belief, because in the beginning, our brains were like, could this be? What if? Even if it's 99% you in the beginning and 1% them, stay in the practice because left to our own devices, we want to say, oh, we talk to our loved ones all the time. But then it's like, did I turn on the dishwasher? What do I have to do tomorrow? It's not that clear communication. Whereas if you're in the present moment and you're writing on either in a journal or on your computer and you're just letting the words flow, and then what if they're writing back? What would they say? And don't break the thought midstream and edit. I think there's two sides of our brains and don't let the other one get involved, but just stay in that creative moment. And it is my belief, because I've been through it as well with loved ones, but also tapping into my own soul and wisdom, and who knows who else. But I know what you're talking about. When it's done and you read it, you think, how can that be? I've even had to look up words in the dictionary. Thought this is not Sandra language. But it's so comforting, and to keep it in a journal or in your computer or something to refer to it. And I love those signs from your kids. I really do. I want to ask you too, Kim, about grief. We want to believe that getting information about the afterlife can heal our grief. Well, it can help, but I personally believe there's one way to the other side of grief, and that's right through it. But there's things that we can do to help us in the process, big picture thinking. Could you give some tips on navigating the grieving process? And then I want to get into finding joy and happiness, even in tough times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the main thing about grief, I always say to my clients, grief doesn't get better with time. Grief gets better when you deal with it. And part of what I love about the grief recovery method is, again, it's 7 weeks. And people listening or who haven't been exposed to the work might think, how can, in 7 weeks, can I heal this huge lifetime hurt? I mean, and trust me, just because you deal with your grief doesn't mean you're not going to grieve anymore. I mean, I was putting together a video montage of Rob in the book. There's a QR code where you can go get all this bonus content, and it's a bunch of really cool stuff. But I was putting together a video, and I found a video of him that I took like 6 years ago, but I did not remember it. And I am sitting at my desk and I listened to this video. It was him talking about his little brother, Jordan, and Jordan is going to do the audiobook with me. I'm so excited. He's going to read Rob's part. Those two were so close. I saw that video and I put my head down on my desk and I sobbed like I did the first week after he died. I mean, I could not, I just sobbed. And then I was done for the day. I just had to shut my computer, go upstairs, go for a walk, call one of my friends. I was done. So, I think grief is a lifetime process. What I appreciated, because I am more of a type A person, I like to program. Again, I'm a research geek. This program is research based. They've had a research by Kent State. They've got 4 papers. They're on my website because I like research. If anybody likes the research about why this program works. And so for me, I like step by step. And this is a laid out week by week program. You read, you have certain exercises you do. And the research is based on there are certain things that we can do that can help us get us to grief. Now, I know there are so many amazing grief coaches out there. This is one way, and I'm sure all of them work for different people. The way that works for me might not work for other people. But this program worked for me amazing. And I don't know if it's my personality type, if it's because I wanted, you know, I was in such deep grief. I was almost like incapacitated, which was so out of character for me because I am such a happy person. I mean, I've spent 15 years, I've written books on happiness, and now here I am. I don't even want to get out of bed. And so it was kind of just a lifeline that I could grab onto that helped pull me up. Now, it doesn't mean after 7 weeks your work is done, but it was a really powerful launching point for me to, step into a place where I was healed enough that I could then kind of get through the weeds and start to do some of the other work. So there's no right and wrong way. There are a ton of different kinds of grief coaching, grief counseling, grief therapy, grief support. I would just say, I do think that it's hard to heal on your own. Again, one of the myths of grief, in our culture, it's laugh and the whole world laughs with you, cry and cry alone. Our culture is not comfortable with grief. It's not comfortable often with dealing with the pain that people go in. So to find some kind of group support or one-on-one therapy, I'm so intense, I needed like one-on-one. I was in the thick of it, and I will admit someone's complete attention on me.
That's the grief recovery method you're speaking of.
Yes, yep. And you know what? There are therapists all across the country. So that need to be made. You can go on their website, and there's a whole index, probably in every town. Anybody who's listening to this, there's somebody close by. But there's so many things. Just find something that will help you, because I think if we just think, oh, with time it'll get better, it doesn't. I think our grief gets better when we deal with it.
I agree completely. So how does one find joy and happiness in this? Because isn't this something that you're the happiness expert?
Yeah, I know. I sometimes I look at my life and I'm like, how ironic is this? I'm the happiness expert and I've lost 2 of my children. Like, this is, yeah, I don't know. I guess this is what I signed up for. So there's so much, again, because I'm a research geek, there's so much research out there on happiness. In my keynotes, I really talk about 5 distinct ways that we can become happier. This is at work and in life, because obviously I usually speak for businesses and associations. And I'll just briefly touch on those 5. The first is we have to engage fully in our lives. We've got to be present. And we've got to really connect. Connection is the 5th one, but not just sitting on the sidelines. And I think when we're hurt, that's so much easier to do. I remember, and I write about this in the book, right after Rob died. Again, I am a glass half full. I'm a Mary Poppins. I'm happy, but all of a sudden, nothing felt safe. I really kind of just isolated myself. I didn't want to focus on anything. I got nervous about stuff that had never made me nervous before. And so the first one is just really showing up in your life. And when I started to wake up and sit in that polka dot chair and be like, okay, I am here now. I am safe. The world is safe. It's all going to be okay. Just being really grounded and present in the moment is one of the first things. And it's hard to do that sometimes when your brain is in so much grief. So again, one of the best ways to get there is meditation, which is so hard for me. I'm literally, I think I'm on day 6 on my meditation app. And I mean, if I get 6 days, that's big for me, because then I always miss a day or two, and then I'll get 4 days, and then I'll miss a day, and then I'll get 8 days, and then I miss 2 days. And so it's, and I do like 4 minutes, because sometimes it's like 4 minutes is better than no minutes, but like just really trying to make that practice of being really present and engaging in your own life. The second one is to be positive. And that is so tough when you've gone through something really painful, especially like in my case, my son was sold fentanyl. And I know there's so many shades of gray in this, how children die or how your loved ones die. Sometimes it's by, someone else's hand. It's, there's degrees of awfulness in how our loved ones pass. I remember after Rob died, somebody said to me, "Can I tell people how he died?" I was like, "Yes." I mean, it doesn't, he was a fentanyl overdose. He was still a beautiful human being. He's not here. That's all that matters. I'm not ashamed of how he died. He's gone, period. I mean, he was an incredible human. I have learned since then about substance use disorder. It's a disease. Breast cancer has like a 5% hereditary rate. Substance use disorder is 50%. So,
Wow.
yeah, I
Had
know.
no idea.
I didn't either. I just found that out this last week. But he had a disease that he fought hard. That kid, nobody can fault him for not trying. He did everything under the books. He did not want to be an addict. He tried to overcome that so hard. But so I know it's hard to be positive sometimes when you feel that your child was hurt, injured. Again, there are so many degrees of awful on how our loved ones can transition. And the Journal of Psychology says that 85% of what we're exposed to on a daily basis is negative. So then you throw in a traumatic, difficult, painful experience, and sometimes it's hard to see any positivity through the woods. But when we can try to focus on good in any situation, like I can look at the night Rob died and go, "Oh my God, it was so horrible. I was by myself in a hotel room and I got the call from the police. And I didn't know if I was going to get home the next day." And something so positive and beautiful from that was that Rob and I got to have that whole night together. And I will never forget that night. I didn't sleep that night. It was just Rob and I in that room all night. And I will treasure that for the rest of my life. So had I been at home with my husband, that experience would have been so different. So
you felt him there with you? Don't mean to interrupt, but you felt him there with you? Okay.
Oh, yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. It sounds so funny. I was in bed snuggling this pillow. And at one point I like closed my eyes and I thought, "Oh my God, I'm hugging Rob." I just really felt he was there. So just trying to look for the good. Our minds it's so funny because we're both research girls. I've read different stats on this, but the one I go with is that our minds are exposed to like 11 million bits of information per second, but our brains have only evolved to the point where we can process 140 bits of information per second. So we get to decide out of that 11 million, what bits do we want to focus on? And so if we really want to find happiness and joy, we got to focus on the good ones. Everybody that's listening to this probably is listening because they've lost somebody that is very dear to them. Well, focus on what good you can find from their life and find from their death. So many good things have come from Rob's death, and he has assured me over and over again, his life was perfect. His life was not cut short. This was no accident. This was part of his soul's journey, his karmic contract. He's like, "Mom, Chelsea, he and I all came in together." He's like, "We chose you as our mom. We chose each other as siblings. This is all as it was meant to be." So there's always something positive or good we can find in every situation. So I would
be present is first, and then positivity second,
Yep.
on your 5
Yep.
steps.
Yep. The third one is to focus on what matters. And 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 like really and that's what's like this podcast and your radio show and your book and all these things. Like I find so many people when they have a devastating loss, they get really focused on what matters. It's so many beautiful stories you hear of people that have created things in honor of their loved one, or they've changed their career, they've written a book, or they've done something that helps other people. And so it's just that. It's like setting some goals and getting really clear. And another fun thing I find really interesting is every single book on happiness, and I think I've read them all, when they talk about how to be happier, goal setting is a really powerful point. And I actually have a blog on goal setting while grieving, because it really does help us. It gives us focus. Again, we all know I call it grief brain. We can get out there and just be so scattered and shattered that we can't focus on anything. So that can be a really powerful tool to help as well.
How do we find your blog?
KimHodis.com.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. And actually it's all on it's in my emails too. So, and then, so the third one is to focus on what matters. And then the fourth one is to practice gratitude, which is so powerful. You know, our happiness, when we look at 100% of our happiness, 10% of our happiness is made up of our circumstances, which is so interesting because here are your circumstances. You've lost somebody you love. So how can we be happy? But all the research in 2001, Martin Seligman started to do all the research in positive psychology. Only 10% of our happiness is made up of our circumstances. 90%. So of that other 50% is what they call your genetic set point. Your genetic set point is what you're born with. Because, some people just, are just naturally happy, uplifted people, and other people. Yeah. I think
That's
you and I
me.
are put in the same class.
Yeah.
And then so 50% is what you come out of the womb with. And they used to think that your genetic set point couldn't be changed. Like if you were a negative person, you were always going to be negative. They found the one thing that can reset your genetic set point is gratitude. So just finding gratitude for, I'm so grateful I had Chelsea for 2 years. I'm grateful I had Rob for 29. I'm grateful for all the love and support from my family and friends after he passed. I'm so grateful for the lessons I learned from how they lived and how they died. So there's just, it's that finding again what you can be grateful for about them having been in your lives and focus on that. Again, we have choice on what we focus on. We can focus on what's wrong, or we can focus on what's right. A really fun story. So after Chelsea died, my husband and I got divorced. That's not the fun story. That's the fun part of it. It's just quite common after the death of a child. And we both went through counseling, and we ended up getting back together. And the week before we were getting remarried, my husband's counselor asked him to bring me to his session. So I go to the session, and he said, Kim, I asked Robert to bring you here because there's a story I want you both to hear. And he said there were two friends, Martha and Jill. Now, they both had been married about the same amount of time, but Martha and her husband, they didn't really get along. They didn't really like each other. They were kind of more like roommates. Jill, on the other hand, was in love with her husband. They still had fun, were very connected. And so Martha got sick of hearing about how great Jill's husband was. So she said, why don't you just, for a week, make a list. Anytime he doesn't listen to you, you got to clean up after him. You have to repeat yourself, whatever. And Jill was like, of course, I love my husband. Well, what she found after a week was that she had all these pages of things her husband did that irritated her. And Dr. Phillips stopped the story right there. He looked my husband in the eye and he said, Robert, do you know why I'm telling you this story? My husband was like, no. And he said, I'm telling you this because whatever you look for in Kim, you will find. Whatever we look for, we'll find. So let's look for something to be grateful for. We can look for all the things that are wrong and unjust and that we can be resentful and angry about. But if we truly want to be happier, we got to look at what we can be grateful for. So it's about really, again, we've got to train our minds. We've had this horrible traumatic experience. And in my course, the course where I teach moms how to connect, we do the first 2 weeks are pretty much on the PTSD of losing a child and what we do to bring ourselves back to wholeness, because we fragment our mental, spirit, emotional, physical bodies when we have a trauma like that, because if we took it all in, it would be more than we could handle. So anyway, so finding gratitude is the fourth one. And then the fifth one, which is probably the most important, is connection, which is why things like this podcast and events that bring us together are so significant, because it's so easy to isolate in your grief. And what we really want to do is connect with each other. Those connections are vital, especially for women. Think about fight or flight. Well, as women, how are we going to fight or flight? I mean, there's no sexism here, but if a man and a woman get in a fight, usually a man's going to win. I mean, that's muscle mass, that's strength, that's all of that. And flight, how do you flee? If you're a woman, you got 3 little kids. So for us, became safety in numbers. So for women, it's even more significant that we connect. And it's so easy to isolate after a traumatic event. And you're so sad and you don't want to cry in front of people and you don't want to make people uncomfortable. And so you think, oh, I'll just stay home. But it's so important. That's why there's such great grief support out there. It's so important that we find ways to connect with each other. And all of those things, that's no woo right there. That's all research backed. That's all research back on how we lift ourselves up and become happier. So.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe you'll be a guest on one of our Sunday gatherings sometime and give our address. I think we would love to hear your words.
Yeah.
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 Because I'm just thinking every Sunday we meet and people from all over the world come, and it's not church service, but it's spiritual, but not religious. But there's an address, and I think you could just bring so much good. And also there's a medium demonstration included, so we get to see how close our loved ones are. And there's people from all over the world that come, and many of them, they're all alone, but we can connect even if it's not human touch. And of course, we want human touch. We want everybody to be with people, but there's a way to connect with like-minded souls. So I wanted to ask you about messagesformoms.com. Yes, I'd like you to describe what's on the website, but it sounds like there's some messages that may have come through the kids, and there's some common denominators. What are some of the messages that come through the kids or people in the spirit world that you've learned?
Yeah. It's funny. You do think I even think of Rob as a kid, even though he's 29, you know? The messagesformoms.com, some of that's getting moved over to the kimhodis.com site, but it's really very basic. It's just, there's information on there about the program. There's information on there about the grief recovery coaching that I do. And then there's information on the book, but the book is going to be going over to the kimhodis.com site. But so check them out. Messages for Mom. If it's missing, then go to kimhodis.com. The main messages that have come through the other moms that have taken the program is just, there's 2 things: how much they love their mom. You know, a lot of I haven't had many moms that had contentious relationships with their kids that were looking to connect. It's mainly been moms that, felt pretty close to their kids. But even the moms where the relationships were contentious and difficult, which is so easy to do, especially if you have a child who's an addict, because that's a tough one to navigate, I know. But just that how much they love their mom. I mean, just how grateful they were that their mom was there for them in whatever capacity it was, and that they're good. That's the main message. It's just, I'm good. I am happy. I'm in bliss. I'm out of pain. If it was a child that died of a terminal illness or, something that was extremely painful, it's just, I'm good. I'm happy. I'm cared for, and that they're there. They say that all the time. All the moms get that. We're with you. We're with you. We're with you. We're with you. And there's a whole chapter in the book where Rob just talks about how, people think that someone dies and then they go away. He's like, no, we die and we stay. We're here for you guys. That's part of the contract we all have. We're here. And Rob's like, as long as you need me, I'll be here. And I think the longest, I think 17 years is the longest mom that I've had connect with one of her children on the other side. He died 17 years ago. Most of them are, in the last 2 to 5 or 6 years. But the mom that took it, she connected great with her child, and it had been 17 years. So yes, they're still here. That's, I think, the main thing they want us to know is they're here. And the other thing, and then Rob tells me this all the time, it's just like they want to connect with us. It's not like, okay, well, we'll do it if you want it. They are so excited. And again, I mean, I think I've seen maybe one mediumship demonstration through helping parents heal. And I don't know what information they get. I haven't studied that a lot. But the thing that Rob reiterates all the time is that they're here and they want to be here for us. They want to be in service to us. They're around, rely on them, call on them. That is what they want. They want it, not just they're willing to do it, but they want to be in service to us.
Thank you for that. I think mediums definitely have their place. However, I think people think their loved one isn't with them unless they talk to a medium, and it's not that. So we offer medium classes, not for people to become a medium unless they want to, but for us all to understand how our soul perceives information. And it's not through the pictures that come into our head, although some people have bits of clairvoyance, but it all starts with our feelings. So I think it's nice to understand that, because that works too with the writing and things. So mediums are great, but I 100% want people to connect with their loved ones because they're right here. And they can continue to learn and grow and explore on the other side. They can multitask. And, sometimes you just get the goosebumps, and that's them right here with you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you to, when I've grieved, I used to get angry when people say, oh, there's a gift in grief. Like, I would want to choke these people, right?
Yeah.
Because you're grieving. You don't want to hear anything like that. Yeah. But the thing is, there is a spiritual course, like a journey that we can allow grief to let us set sail on. A good friend, Brian Smith, he's got a podcast called Grief to Growth, planted, not buried, right? So grief can give you a start. Do you have any words of how grief can be a catalyst to get us all on that journey of discovery of who we are?
Yeah. And I must say, Brian's podcast was one of the very first I was ever on. I was so honored to be on there. He is so amazing. He's just incredible. And I know he's got some great grief counseling, coaching stuff he does as well. So I'm sorry. Tell me again.
That's all right. It's just,
yeah.
Speak about how we can use grief to be the catalyst really in our journey of discovery. A lot of people die internally when they're grieving, or it can get us to start looking at the bigger questions and connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one thing I had asked, one thing that it's in the book, I had asked Rob, I had said, Rob, people will say, oh, her son died and she was never the same. And he goes, well, Mom, of course. He's like, we're never the same after any experience. He's like, you're never the same after a child dies, but you're never the same after you graduate from college. You're never the same after you go on a vacation. I mean, he's like, every experience changes us. This is no different. And it's all of those experiences are here for us. This is in the book over and over again. Everything that happens to us happens for us. And so I think that it is, so I know what happened for me when Rob died. I said I got cracked wide open. It's just like, I got cracked wide open. So many fundamental things shifted for me about how I saw the world and how I saw myself and how I saw my relationships and my family and all of those things. And so I think it's just, again, for me, it's remembering that it was a soul contract that I made with Rob. I agreed to be his mom. And I even now looking back, knowing how this was all going to play out, I'd still do it again. I'd raise my hand and go, yes, I want to be his mama. And so just remembering that it's part of what we've agreed to, even though we don't remember, and that beauty and good can come from it, whatever it is, beauty and good can come from it. And one of the mamas that she was in my very first, she was in the pilot group, and she's like, I get so pissed off when people say, well, your child would want you to be happy. And I'm like, it's kind of what I'm thinking right now. So you never know what's going to trigger people, and I don't want to trigger anyone, but I really do believe that that's what our loved ones on the other side want for us. Like, they came in and they lived their journey and their soul contract, and now they're going on and doing their soul work. And that's what we're here to do too. We're just still in a body. So we don't get to quit doing our work because we've experienced this awful trauma. We just get to do our work in a different way. And this is part of our work, this incarnation. And so it's funny because when you said, I used to hate it when people say there's a gift in grief, but I do believe that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that because I don't want to piss anybody off.
No, I believe it too. But we're looking at it from a different lens, right?
Right.
Like if you're right in the midst of it, it's the last thing
Yeah.
you want to hear. You want
Right,
people to be
right.
understanding. You want to do a program like Grief Recovery Method or something,
Mhm.
be with people that understand, but there comes a
Yes.
time where no matter who it is right now, no matter what awful thing you're experiencing, sometime down the road, you're going to meet up with somebody and your words and your advice or your listening will be just the thing that somebody needs. So we just have to trust. We have to trust. Kim, with our few minutes left together, what closing messages do you have? Or is there something I should have asked you that I didn't? Just any thoughts you want to leave our listener or our viewer with?
Oh, honey, you are so good at this. This is, I think, like my fourth podcast. So what did you say? You have almost 800 episodes? Oh, gosh, just, Rob has reiterated over and over again, love is all there is. Love is all there is. And, after he died, just remember my sister said they're worth our tears. I couldn't stop crying. I've never had, even after Chelsea died, my mom and my dad both passed. I mean, I have never cried like I cried after Rob died. I actually thought, I didn't know it was physically possible to cry that much. And I didn't know you could survive if you cried that much. I'm like, I'm not like, they're going to have, I'm not going to get IV fluids because I've got no water in me because I could not stop crying. And I just remember my sister saying they're worth our tears. And, I do believe we wouldn't understand hot if we didn't know cold. We wouldn't know good if we didn't know bad. Although Rob says there is no good and bad. It's all up from up there. They all see it as just experiences to help us grow. But I think, and I've always said as a coach, I don't think we can't take our clients higher than we've been, so the deeper your grief, the deeper your joy can go. If you haven't, and I remember hearing that like after Chelsea died, and I thought, oh geez, well, I'm going to be one happy woman if I only knew what was coming. But I do think that if we can look at our grief and our pain and say, because I've gone that low, I'm going to be able to go that high. That's my work to do this incarnation. That's my work right now, is to take this difficult, painful, challenging trauma and use it for our good, use it to bring more joy and more light and more love and to grow. And again, I don't want to be insensitive to anybody, because I know if you are in the thick of grief, you're like, oh, screw that. I just want to get up and get out of bed. And trust me, I've been there too. But I do think as we progress, and again, if we can get some support and get over the initial hump of that deep grief that I don't believe, that we can then take a step back and go, okay, what's next? What's mine to do with this that I've experienced? How do I make sense of it? How do I move through it? What can I do to, for me, it's an honoring. What can I do as an honoring of this person that I am grieving so deeply?
Kim, thank you so much for your words, your wisdom, your journey, and for your kids too in the background.
Yeah, they're
You're
here.
never far. But thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for inviting me. I just, like I said, so honored and privileged. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, I feel the same way. And the book we've been speaking about is called Beyond Grief: How a Son's Afterlife Connection Transformed a Mother's Loss into a Remarkable Spiritual Journey. You can find out more at messagesformoms.com. And that is no longer around. I'm sure it'll be forwarded to kimhodous.com, which is Kim, Kim, HODOUS.com. And as a reminder, my home base is we-don't-die.com. Please come join us on one of those free Sunday gatherings. They're just awesome. Or dip your toe in the water and join us on one of our Gentle Paths to Spirit medium classes. You get to explore, and it's amazing what you think is your imagination. And then you can work with somebody on Zoom and they say, "That's my loved one. You just described them." It's amazing. We are powerful souls having a human experience, but it is all real. We will see them again, and our life matters. So, in closing, my name is Sandra Champlain. I'm always so happy to be your host on We Don't Die. I do believe that life is an education for the soul, and that your life here on earth is important. So be present, connect with people, be in gratitude, quiet the brain, re-listen to this episode. There's so much in it. You want a little notepad, but above and beyond everything, connect with your loved ones. They're right here with you. They really are, and they want nothing more than for you to have a great life. So I really want to thank you for listening or for watching, and we'll see you again soon.